Ooh, that's new.
Huh.
Just so everybody knows, we don't know if you heard that. You
I
just
heard
joined
it.
the Conspiracy Keepers.
I
Mhm.
accept it. Continue.
And I'm Backlash LaRue along with Joe Monaco and Scooter McGee. Gentlemen, it's been 2 weeks. I'm sure a lot has happened in this world since we last talked.
Yeah, that's
Gentlemen,
right.
how are you?
Well, as good as it can be expected with the world in the shape that it's in now.
Very true. And Scooter, isn't today the anniversary of George Floyd, or was that yesterday?
Well, okay. Hi, everybody. And yeah, happy anniversary of, so it is today, a year ago, this afternoon in Minneapolis, that a video emerged of a black man on the knees of Minneapolis police officers. His name was George Floyd. And I think this is the only time we're ever going to get to tell this story of how behind the eight ball I am for a year. Because we remember why I was downtown Denver for the nonsense.
I believe so. Yeah.
Mhm.
Does somebody want to? I don't want to put it in your head. Why was I downtown Denver that night?
Do you remember, Joe?
You tell us. You were the one that was there.
I was thinking, I think there was another protest going on because of everything, and that was that evening. And you were
Well, no, it had to do with, so at this point, we had put an episode of the Conspiracy Keepers, or two of them, in the can. Remember?
Mm-hmm. I do. I remember that.
Maybe we might want to talk to lawyers and yada yada yada.
Right.
So that's a year, and look where we are in a year, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
The United States of America, I don't believe is recognizable anymore. Now, maybe that's because half the idiots are wearing masks. That's an easy joke to make. But this country, America, is no longer, in my opinion, at 53 years of age, the way I was raised, where I was raised in St. Paul, Minnesota, America is unrecognizable. And what frightens me is that Joe and I and you, Backlash, and a few others over decades, we've talked about a sinister group that wanted exactly this, to change the face of America. And I think they sadly have succeeded. I don't think there's coming back from this now.
No. America is now part of the New World Order. And this is what we've been warning people about for over 20 years. And they told us we were crazy conspiracy theorists. And, just look out your window. America does not exist anymore. We are now part of a one world government. It's pretty obvious that there is an unseen authority that is manipulating and controlling world events. That's why you're not getting any real big backlash from any nation in the world, because they're all controlled by the same people. Just common sense would tell you that there got to be some big nation that would say, oh, no, we're not going along with this, but we're not seeing it. Because, just like we've been telling you, there's an authority that's hidden that's controlling these world events. And yeah, you're right. America doesn't exist anymore.
Joe, in your opinion, who do you think is running? It's not Kamala Harris and it's not Joe Biden. Who's running the White House right now, honestly?
Well, no, it's never the president or the vice president. Generally, the vice president is the controller of the president. That's usually what happens. But I don't believe it's either one of them. Not this time. No, I don't think it's either one of them.
Kamala isn't even running the show, or Kamala, or whatever her name is, and her Chuck Taylor high tops. I don't care. I care about who's in charge of this country right now, who's driving the ship. And I have a very you know why we're not hearing from Hillary? I think that's why. I think this is not a third term for Obama. I think this is a third term for Clinton.
I don't know. I don't know if any of the people that we think that we know, the people that are put out there for the talking heads, I don't think any of them really have a lot of power. I don't care if it's the Clintons or it's the Bushes or the Obamas or Reagans. It just doesn't matter. Those people are the mouthpieces that are put out there. I don't believe those people have power at all. The people that are really controlling things are not people we would know. I don't believe. And maybe even people we haven't heard of. Now we know who the bankers are. We know about the Rothschilds. We know about the Rockefellers. We know about the DuPonts and on and on and on. Reynolds, all those people that are the families that control everything.
Okay.
But we don't know. What we don't know is who goes directly below them. Those people are kind of hidden, and we don't really know who they are.
All right. Backlash, stand
Yeah.
by with your search engine.
Well, I was just going to jump in. I am not Googling who's really in charge of the White House. I don't need anybody
Stop.
showing up my doorstep.
No, I made a reference 2 episodes ago about John Edwards' love child and things that are hidden from the public. Backlash, Werner von Braun, Elon Musk. How is it Werner von Braun was talking about Elon Musk 70 years ago? And you're going to pull the document. In the interim, I can see her face. Hold on a second. She was Werner von Braun's chief of staff. And I interviewed her on the Scooter McGee show. Dr. Carol, Barbie, Blondie, Busty, Bimbo. I didn't mean that. Dr. Carol Rosin. She talked about how first it would be a communist threat, then it would be a terrorist threat, then it would be an alien threat.
Okay,
Is
spell
what
her last name.
she said Werner von Braun said. But it's been recently discovered in Werner von Braun's writings who's going to take us to Mars. Elon.
Well, give me Carol, whatever her name is. Carol what?
Dr. Carol Rosin, I believe is her name. Forgive me, a year of tear gas and CS nerve gas, and my Alzheimer's may be kicking in.
She's working.
Really pretty lady, a little heavy set, big blonde, puffy hair, you know, that 80s hair.
Yeah, I think that's her. She's the founder of the Institute for Security and Cooperation.
So that's video of her for 20 years. Okay. I'm talking about in the last week. Just Google von Braun, Elon Musk, and you're going to see it.
Well, that's what I'm looking at right now. He says, aerospace engineer Werner von Braun may have predicted Elon Musk's plan to colonize other worlds nearly 70 years ago, and he described a man named Elon ruling over Mars.
So Joe, so what you talk about, you know, we may not know these names, but the inner circle certainly do because of the bloodlines or the lineage or the occultism or whatever it is that binds them together.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. The inner circle does exactly that. The way I want to kind of have people see the way the world works, think of it like the NFL. Think of it like the Minnesota Vikings. We know who the Wilfs are, right? They're the money. They're the owners. We know who Coach Zimmer is. Those are the people that we kind of know. Now, if you're a Viking fan, you know who Rick Spielman is. He's the general manager, but he's not really out there a lot.
Nope.
Okay, but he's the one that kind of the owners hired to put everything together. He's actually the Vikings, Rick Spielman. He's the one that hired Coach Zimmer. He's the one that, you know, hires the scouts. He's the one that does everything. So think of the world like that. Even though we know who the Rothschilds are, we don't know who that general manager is that you know reports directly to them. Those are the people that were kind of out of the scene, kind of out of the limelight. We don't really know who a lot of them are. There's more than one. There's several of them. But those people are kept secret, hidden on purpose. And it's very difficult to figure out who they are. But I can tell you one thing, who they're not. If they're on TV talking a lot, it's not them. Those are the mouthpieces. The ones that are really hired by the international bankers, those people are hard to find who they really are.
All right, so settle it now, I guess, once and for all, because 6 weeks ago we started talking about what's going to happen in June or July with the UFO stuff. And then we talked about Gleason and Nixon. But now, since 60 Minutes brought it up, every news, even your local Channel 4 news, is talking about strange lights in the sky. So do we expect anything from this, Joe?
I expect something to happen eventually. Whether it's going to happen in June or not, I'm not really sure. But they are
Probably in
priming us
July,
for
but
something to
okay.
happen. Yeah, June or July. They are priming us for something to happen. And they've been doing it for a long time. All these movies, whether it be Close Encounters, Men in Black, all these UFO shows, all these things on the Travel Channel, the History Channel, they're always talking about UFOs. So that tells me that that is the agenda. We've even heard US presidents talk about UFOs. We've talked about that before. So UFOs are going to play a big role in establishing the New World Order. They might be the actual cement that actually solidifies it. Once they tell us that aliens are real, that they seated us here and they're checking up on us and been checking up on us and they're seeing how our progress is. Basically, what they're going to tell us is there are gods. You know, big lie, but that's what they're going to try to convince us, and a lot of people fall for it.
I was
But
going to say, so do
we've
you
seen them
think
set the stage for it.
so you say, Joe, they're priming us, and I agree. They are priming us for something. What that something is, I don't know. Uh, do you think you know?
I think that they are like I had mentioned this once before when Ronald Reagan said that the nations will put down their differences
That's exactly what popped.
if we had a UFO threat, an alien threat. He says, think of how the world would come together. Okay, he's basically telling you that that's what they're going to do to establish the New World Order. That's going to be the linchpin. Is there's going to be this alien agenda, and all we're gonna come together. So yeah, I think that's the ultimate agenda. I don't know exactly how they're going to do it. There might be one other agenda that we had touched upon in the last show that I think might happen if this happens. We've heard a lot of Christian circles talk about the rapture or the snatching away of the believers. You know, we've heard about that. We've all heard about it because in Christian circles they've been talking about that a lot lately as well. I'm not convinced that's going to happen, but let's just humor them. Let's say it is going to happen. Let's say that God has a plan to deliver the believers before the wrath of God and the tribulation starts and all hell breaks loose on planet Earth. I think if that happens, they're going to use that alien agenda to explain where all the Christians went. Ah, the aliens took them. That's what happens, and then they're going to establish an alien presence on the planet. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of leaning against it. But I think it's interesting. We're seeing a lot of talk about aliens, and in the Christian circles, we're seeing a lot of talk about the rapture at the same time. So it's an interesting concept, and I think it might go there. I don't know.
Backlash, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm actually good because I'm just thinking, with what Joe said about that was, if they utilize the aliens, and yeah, I could see that'll unify everybody because all of a sudden we've got a threat that we don't know how to deal with, number one. And number two, it'll all come together after everybody loses their blank beforehand. And all the other people screaming, I told you, I knew it was going to happen. And then the same with the rapture, that comes and goes. It seems like every few years, but I mean, especially bigger during the pandemic, that's for darn sure. But then again, in the Bible, it says you will not know the time nor the place or when it's going to happen. So, that's all speculation on my part.
Well, it bothers me. So you bring up how many people looking for religion during the pandemic. The religion they most sought out in the West, in the United States, was Satanism and paganism. And that's it. You can, whatever search engine you want to use, those organizations saw a massive uptick in interest, membership, and financial. But okay, so Joe, this is now forgive me because this is going to be a weird conversation. You were the first adult outside of my world of St. Thomas and Cretan and St. John's that I ever talked God with. Backlash, I don't even think you and I out on the picnic table at the office did we talk much about God. I think we talked more about conspiracy.
Yeah.
But so, Joe, in the other episodes, we've talked about the thoughts of aliens or extraterrestrials, and demons, and etc. I don't think I've ever asked you, do you believe in God? And I preface that with, you're the man who gave me an alternative Bible to read.
Ah,
I still have it. I've read it a dozen times.
okay.
So we've talked a lot about religion, but I don't think I ever asked you that question
Mhm.
because I'm not asking it for a gotcha because of
Yeah.
everything you were saying. Joe, wait a minute. Joe believes in God. Wait a minute. What kind of effed up God would allow this kind of ultimate battle? For what? Loyalty if you believe in me? I don't know. I'm missing. I think I misunderstood something of the argument of, again, no. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if I misunderstood. And because, yeah, there's a whole group talking about the rapture, and there's a whole group talking about extraterrestrial aliens. Then there's a whole group now talking about DMT and those aliens. So that's why I was asked, because I think I misunderstood. Unless I didn't, then the better question is, what kind of God would allow this? Because we're talking about the slaughter of tens, if not hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind when we talk about God, everybody, when people say they believe in God, they're all talking about a different God. That doesn't mean they're all worshiping or pointing to the same God. And especially when
All
you see
right.
on these TV shows or awards shows with
What
these
God?
celebrities come out and say, "Thank God that I got this award." Well,
All
the
right,
Bible
all right,
talks
all right.
about
Duly noted.
the Bible
So what
talks
God?
about the God of this world, little g. So they could be talking about little g God, which is Satan. Okay, so just because they say I believe in God, I want to thank God, they might not be talking about the Hebrew God of the Bible of the Israelites. They might be talking about the God of this world, which is the one that they're thanking for all their riches and all their awards,
And
because
that's what,
that's what Satan has.
and by definition, so like the Bible I grew up with, so that would be Lucifer, the fallen angel.
Well, Lucifer is a fallen angel, a fallen cherubim, but yeah, he's a fallen angel, and he took a third of the angels with him, which would be the demons. Some are unseen, and some have physicality, because we see this many times in the Old Testament, where fallen angels, demons had physicality, and they were able to reproduce with human women and have their children become giants, which God destroyed in the flood, and I think it's still happening today, because
So,
they even said it would happen again.
so the God you're describing, that God wants the slaughter of those non-believers or false believers.
Well, I think that what we have to do is, and I don't have the answers to this because I have
I
plenty
know
of
you don't.
questions. I have plenty of questions as well, even though I believe in the God of the Bible, Yahweh. Yeshua was the savior. His name wasn't Jesus. If you called Jesus back in the day, they wouldn't know what you're talking about. His name was Yeshua. But that aside, I have a lot of questions as well. It's like I don't know why he does things like he does. I don't know why he lets things happen the way they do. But I can point to the oldest book in the Bible, Job, and Job had the same questions. You know, God allowed Job to basically lose everything he had. He allowed Satan to take everything from him, including his family and his riches, everything. And Job even asked God, you know, what basically, I'm paraphrasing, what's going on here? Why are you doing this? And God didn't tell him why. He just said, where were you when I created the heavens? Where were you when I did this? Basically, he's saying, you don't have the authority to question me. You can't understand why I do things. And the same goes with us today. I don't know why God does these things or allows things to happen, but at the same time, this is the Almighty. Who am I to think that I can question God and figure out why He's doing things or why He's allowing things? I can't. But I will tell you this: I have the same questions probably most of you have. I don't know why He does it, and we won't know until we're on the other side, most likely.
How you doing, Backlash?
I'm actually very, very interested in everything Joe's talking about. Because I mean, I think everybody that believes in God does have the same questions. You know, I mean, he gave us free, you know, what is it, free choice or
Free will.
free will? Thank you. You know, right, wrong. We all know inherently what's right and wrong, but it's those questions that you posed as well, Scooter. How can you do this to everybody? But I think you know, ultimately it's the ultimate fight is between God and little g, you know. just because that's where he placed, he fell here. So I'm actually fascinated by this subject and listening to you guys talk about it versus some of the other stuff that really makes my head spin and makes me sick.
Well, I'll put this concept out there too, because I've heard a lot of people say this. Well, God gives us free will. He really doesn't. I think free will is kind of a myth. I mean,
yeah, not by the definition of what God. If God knows everything, start to
yeah,
finish,
he
don't
does.
have free will.
Yeah, and let me give this an example. The monarch butterfly, God said,
Yes.
you will lay eggs on no other plant but milkweed, and they don't. Monarch butterflies won't touch another plant. They only lay eggs on milkweed. Now, when that monarch butterfly goes into a field and lays an egg on a milkweed plant, did that monarch butterfly exercise his free will? Because he could have picked any milkweed. Well, if you want to call that free will, yeah, but he really didn't. God gave him parameters and he's going to be within those parameters. You might be able to pick the weed that you lay your eggs on, but ultimately you can't just do anything you want to. God has strict limits about what he'll allow a human being to do. So I think this concept of I can make all these choices I want to make. It's like, no, you really can't. Even the Pharaoh in the Bible, when God hardened his heart, so Pharaoh wouldn't do what we thought that Pharaoh should do. It says God hardened his heart. God did it. God made it so he didn't want to do the right thing. So, God's in control of everything. Now, we don't understand it, but don't think you have free will and can just make any choice you want, because God's really in control of all that. No, or let me add one more thing. You don't really want to have absolute free will, because you'll screw it up. If you really had free will, you would regret it.
You'll screw it up.
I think we've all screwed it up pretty bad from one time to another.
True. I agree. But if you ultimately had free will, it would be much worse. Thank God that he didn't give you ultimate free will. And he even talks about that in Revelation when he talks about the kings of the north that will come down and invade Israel. God says he'll put hooks in their jaws and bring them down. Now, what does that mean? It's the same concept when you put hooks in the jaws of a horse and you lead him to where you want him to go, because if he doesn't go, those hooks in his jaws will hurt him. So these kings of the north, these leaders of probably what we call now Russia or the Soviet Union or whatever, going to come down and invade Israel eventually. It says God put hooks in their jaws and brought them down. They didn't just exercise free will and say, I'm going to be a bad person and invade Israel. It says God brought them down to do this. So I'm going, well, now that opens up a whole can of worms. Why would God do this? In other words, he's basically inciting them to do this. Doesn't make any sense, but keep in mind, God's in control, not Satan, not human beings. He's in control of everything. And I think that's a hard concept for people to really grasp onto, because it means you don't have free will. God's in control, and he will allow you to do very little on either side of these parameters that he's set.
Okay, now you're making me want to sit in a corner after all of that. Jeez. So for those of you that are coming in on the end of this, or rewatching this, or listening to it the first time, this particular episode we talked about Werner von Braun and the supposedly he predicted Elon. It was in a book that he had written way back in 1952. So, and I don't know how old Elon is, if he's about the same age or older, or if he's around our age or not. But and then God, you guys, I love this conversation about God and the aliens. Those are mesmerizing for me.
Interesting. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're coming up on the end of
All right,
of a half an hour. We've got about 6 minutes to go.
Okay. I would like to also retract. Dr. Carol Rosin is neither a Barbie, nor a Blondie, nor a Busty, nor a Bimbo. Again, I had the opportunity to interview her on the show. I believe it's Project Exposure. She delivered a speech at the National Press Club, and that put her on the talking circuit. And again, God rest the late great Art Bell, because that's how I got her as a guest. Joe and Backlash, I got Deadpool updates.
Okay, go for it.
It is Memorial Day, and I want to add some names and see what you think. Queen Elizabeth II, now that Philip is gone, the rule of if they really were in love, she could go within the year. So Queen Elizabeth has to be put in the Deadpool.
I'll agree with that one. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised she's still here. She must have 9 lives.
Now, speaking of 9 lives, Joe, Bilderberg and the meeting for 2020 and 2021, very under the radar. Dr. Henry Kissinger, I'm putting in the Deadpool.
Okay.
I thought he was dead.
I don't believe so. Check backlash.
That's what
Also
I'm-
of that group, Joe, Jimmy Carter, because of Joe Biden's proximity to Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter in that very goofy photograph.
Didn't I put him in the pool already? I thought I did.
I don't know. I'm updating my Deadpools.
Oh,
Then I'm agreeing with you, Backlash, if you have Jimmy Carter. And then sadly, based upon his last 2 recent press conferences, POTUS 46 has to now go into the Deadpool.
Oh, really?
Well, his new vehicle, the president of the United States is driving himself around in a Suburban, and they've got him in the driver's seat, and a Secret Service guy's got another steering wheel in the passenger seat. It's a student driving car. They're letting Biden think he's president and driving the Suburban. Well, name the last president that ran around driving a Suburban. Name any presidential candidate that got behind the wheel of anything. Oh, sorry, Governor Dukakis.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I'll have to agree with your Deadpool. I think those are pretty good choices. I think what we need to do when we have these Deadpools, we can pull up some of the ones that are maybe older, that are kind of ready to go. And we maybe need like a dark horse, somebody who's like famous and like only 30 years old that nobody sees coming. Maybe
Prince Harry.
In the future. Yeah. In the future, maybe we can add like a dark horse Deadpool, somebody that is completely off the radar as far as they're not sick, they're not old, but it's somebody the Illuminati might want to take out or sacrifice.
Well, I see Queen Elizabeth dying. I see Harry is going off the rails, talking about how evil. Again, we Americans left England so we could exercise our First Amendment, and 300 plus years later, he still doesn't understand it. However, Queen Elizabeth dies. The ascension of the throne is challenged. Harry could very well go back to England, and there's all kinds of biblical nonsense in there. But you want to bring up a youngster, then Prince Harry.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, you might. Yeah, that might, because these elite are known to sacrifice their own sometimes. They'll
and
do
he
that.
could
They're not above
sacrifice
that.
himself. Just look who he's married to.
Yeah, that could be. That could very well be.
I made a mistake, and I'm slitting my wrists.
Mhm. And that's kind of how they do things. They kind of put people out there, beforehand. They kind of make a big deal out of them, put them out in the media, and let us talk about them, before they do this. So yeah.
Do we have a Tiger update? Joe, do we have a Tiger update? Tiger Woods?
Well, we've seen him on crutches, and we've only seen 2 pictures of him on crutches. He was at, I think, one of his children's soccer games, and he took a picture with another young kid who I think had cancer. We see him on crutches, and we see a big boot on him. But other than that, they're pretty darn quiet. He's never given any interviews. As far as I know, he's never talked about the accident, never talked about what went on, what was he thinking, why didn't he brake? No interviews. We've just seen 2 pictures of him on crutches, and that's all we have so far. So yeah, the whole thing is very strange, very stinks to high heaven, that whole situation.
All right, Joe, how do they find us? And let's get out of here.
They can find us on conspiracykeepers.com, which is where all these shows are logged. And you can also go to theconspiracyzone.net, and those 2 sites are linked. But you want to go to conspiracykeepers.com. That's where all these shows are.
Perfect.
Backlash, how much time left?
We've got basically 30 seconds.
I would like to congratulate substitute teacher Dave Zebarth from St. Thomas Academy, who this week is retiring after being in that same building 41 years, abusing and torturing kids. Now, I can't say kids plural because he only did it to me, but he was a substitute teacher, and even good kids torture substitute teachers. Congratulations, Mr. Zebarth.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And gentlemen, I just looked at my schedule. I don't have any flights next Tuesday or Thursday, so we could possibly get 2 off next week.
Yay.
Well, gentlemen, Thank you for joining us once again for another episode of the Conspiracy Keepers. Joe, Scooter, have a wonderful day. We'll talk with you soon.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Hail Boreas. Hail the
Mhm.
Vulcan.